Your job basically wrote itself out of existence. That's the sentence that broke something in me. Not loudly, not with tears. Quiet, like a neck crack before a storm. This fresh-shaved VP of operations, some Ivy League sleeve roller with PowerPoint charisma, looked at me like I was an outdated router he couldn't wait to unplug. He stood on that stupid stage, headset mic on like he was delivering a TED talk to people who didn't ask to be inspired, while screens behind him pulsed with bar charts and words like synergy, streamlining, and resource alignment. They clapped. Some even nodded like they understood. Me, I watched from the third row, sipping burnt breakroom coffee, and felt my stomach sink one slow inch at a time. He never looked my way during the town hall, but 20 minutes later I was summoned to the small glass coffin of a meeting room labeled Collaboration Pod 2. Just him and me. Door didn't even close all the way. Like privacy was too expensive now. He didn't even sit down. Just said it, your position's been reviewed. Between the new automation tools and your recent rollout, we've determined it's, well, redundant. I blinked. Once. Then nodded, same way you nod when a stranger tells you the dog you're petting just died. Slow, controlled. He smiled like I was doing him a favor by not making a scene. You should be proud, really. Your own work made this possible. That's real impact. Impact. Funny word for vaporizing 6 years of sweat, unpaid weekends, and keyboard indentations on my fingertips. My tongue tasted like rust, but I said nothing. What was there to say? I wasn't going to beg for scraps in front of someone who thought automation meant you could replace a brain with a fancier Jira plugin. I stood. My chair made a sound like a tiny scream against the linoleum. 2 hours. That's what they gave me to pack. 2 hours to erase myself from the system I built. The moment I got back to my desk, my Slack access was already deactivated. No goodbye message. No data export, just a locked laptop screen and a security guard who kept glancing at his watch like I was a sandwich left too long in the microwave. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just moved, monitor by monitor, cable by cable. I packed my mechanical keyboard like it was a relic, folded the blanket I kept on the back of my chair, slid my dying spider plant into a tote. Every little thing I touched made the edges of my numbness feel sharper. Nobody looked up. That's the part I'll remember forever. The same people whose reports I salvaged, whose crashes I debugged at 2 a.m., whose panic attacks I talked down when their code wouldn't deploy. None of them made eye contact. Maybe they thought I'd done too good a job. Maybe they'd already replaced me in their heads with a Slack bot named Cheryl. I boarded the train with my cardboard box, just another ghost with a pink slip in her eyes. And as I watched the city blur past the window, I opened the terminal app on my phone, tunneling into a private port routed to the old server cabinet, humming away in my basement like a loyal old dog. My fingers moved from muscle memory. I opened the cron configuration file, the one I never documented, not out of malice, just it never seemed urgent. It was the central node, the gatekeeper. Every major automation I wrote, report scheduling, payroll syncing, error reconciliation, required a daily handshake key that only this server generated. A quiet little ritual that made the machine gods say yes. I scrolled past the code, saw the time-stamped logs from 4:59 a.m. that morning. Everything had worked like always. One more heartbeat in a system built on trust and routine. Then I reached the command line, and without ceremony, without hatred, without even a deep breath, I disabled the key. One line. Hit enter. The script went dark. No alarms, no fireworks, just silence. But somewhere in that skyscraper, behind glass walls and standing desks and endless motivational posters, a countdown had begun. Quiet, invisible, irreversible. And I sat back in my train seat, staring out at the smudged skyline, wondering if any of them would even notice before it was too late. The security guy didn't speak, just hovered by the desk like I might throw a stapler or take a hostage. His badge said RON, all caps, like he was contractually forbidden from empathy. I asked if I could send a quick goodbye email. Ron blinked slow, then tapped his walkie. Mumbled something to HQ, came back with a practiced shrug, not aloud. Sorry, sure you are, Ron. I was halfway through packing when the monitor went black, mid-keystroke. They'd killed my badge, and with it, my system access. My box still had cords sticking out the side like intestines. No time for neatness. I pulled out my phone, checked the app I used for internal system health alerts. Locked out, everywhere. I left the office with a cardboard box and a tote bag. No fanfare, no best of luck, balloon tied to my chair. Just the whisper of a door clicking shut behind me like the end of a bad date. Outside, the air felt thinner. Or maybe I was breathing wrong. I walked past the cigarette smokers, pretending not to stare, down the block to the train station, and sat on a bench that reeked of yesterday's rain and someone's half-eaten burrito. My feet hurt, my back ached. But my fingers moved with muscle memory, unlocking my phone, opening the SSH terminal. No corporate VPN anymore. No firewall rules. Just me and the cold, clean pipes straight to the core. I tapped in the credentials, 7 years old and never once changed. The server in my basement purred to life in digital response. I checked the logs, everything still green, job scheduler intact, last authentication key distributed at 4:59 a.m. Every subsystem responded like obedient little soldiers. Status, healthy, workflow, flowing. They were still alive because I'd left the engine running. I could have left it that way. Could have walked away and let them have the skeleton of my work, stripped of its soul but still twitching. But some part of me, some stupid, stubborn gear inside, refused to let them pretend I didn't matter, that I hadn't been the spine of the system they now strutted around like they built it. So I did the one thing they didn't train out of me. I acted. In the terminal window, I scrolled to the cron job handling the handshake ping. My little guardian demon, set to broadcast the day's authentication key to the core endpoints at dawn. Every dawn, without fail, I highlighted the line, typed a single pound sign in front of it, commented it out. Just like that, the next morning's key would never be born. No ping, no green light, no doors opening, just quiet failure, untraceable at first, then maddening in its reach. No error, no alert, no red warning, just scripts waiting for a signal that would never come. I closed the terminal. No drama, no fanfare, just off. Somewhere behind me, a train screeched in. I boarded with my box, sat by the window, and watched the platform slide away like it owed me money. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. Revenge is a show. This was theaterless, just consequence. By the time I got home, I was already getting those first just checking in texts from coworkers who'd heard something but weren't sure what. I didn't reply. They'd find out soon enough. The basement was cool and quiet. I passed the humming rack like a priest ignoring his altar. The LEDs blinked their holy pattern, unaware they'd been silenced. I stood there for a moment, half tempted to flip the switch and kill it all right then. But no, better to let them die on their own timeline. Systems like that don't go out with a bang. They rot, slowly, elegantly. I poured a glass of wine, sat at the kitchen table, watched the clock tick past 9 p.m., 12 hours until someone's dashboard forgot how to breathe, until some intern got blamed for a blank report, until the VP started sweating through his Banana Republic collar. And still, no calls, no emails, no hey, quick question about your code, just silence, which told me everything I needed to know. They still thought I was replaceable. They hadn't noticed the ticking yet. At exactly 8:59 a.m., the world still turned. Monday caffeine had barely sunk into the bloodstream of middle managers when the first Slack pings flew like wasps out of a kicked nest. Hey, anyone else seeing blank dashboards? My 9 a.m. client report isn't generating. Did the batch job get moved? Printer Q says invalid signature. By 9:04, the whispers started blooming into full-body panic. Engineers jabbed at keyboards like defibrillators. Team leads blamed the cloud. Intern rebooted the router 3 times. They thought it was a fluke. The real comedy? They blamed the database migration, the one that happened 2 weeks ago. The VP, slicker than a greased LinkedIn post, slapped together a rapid-fire Zoom update for the board and called it a minor latency hiccup stemming from legacy dependencies. Legacy. That was the word he used to describe the skeleton I left behind. Meanwhile, the scheduler scripts was beautiful little ghost hands that sorted billing logs, cross-checked forms, sanitized inputs before pushing them downstream. They all sat in timeout, waiting, expecting, starving, because the one thing they all needed, the handshake key from my server, never came, not missing, just never born. By 9:27 a.m., the ticketing system was clogged with error codes no one recognized. Finance couldn't access payroll queues. Auto-generated client emails sent out blank templates. Print jobs failed authorization. And the real kicker, nobody knew why. They weren't down, just disconnected. It was like the house still had walls, doors, furniture, but no oxygen. And me, I was still in my pajamas, sitting on my porch with a chipped coffee mug and the world's most satisfying front row seat. My cat purred on the windowsill. The sky had never looked more aggressively blue. I opened LinkedIn out of habit, and there it was. John T., Director of Client Ops. Anyone else experiencing weird downtime this morning? If you're in enterprise workflow ops, shoot me a DM. We're trying to isolate something odd in our stack. #Monday Mystery, #TechLife. I snorted so hard, I almost spilled my coffee. Monday Mystery, huh? That's cute. Like it's a Scooby-Doo episode, and not the slow implosion of a system built entirely on my unpaid overtime. Another post popped up. Marcy G., Sales Enablement Lead. Shout out to our IT heroes today. Systems are being a little quirky, but we know you'll get us back on track. Flex Laptopot quirky. That's one word for watching the digital scaffolding collapse in slow motion. My phone buzzed. Slack messages. My personal number. People who used to sit 5 feet away from me, now suddenly interested in touching base. Hey, quick Q, do you know where the latest script backups were stored? I think something's misfiring. No pressure if you're busy. Weird Q, you didn't happen to host any tools off-site, did you? Just trying to rule things out. Just wanted to say again, thank you for everything you did here. Things are rough this morning. I stared at the screen, watched the panic type itself into polite corporate worry speak. And I didn't respond. Not because I was cruel. Not because I didn't still care on some level for the few good ones still trapped in that Kafkaesque clown org, but because I'd already told them. Years ago, in meetings, in emails, on sticky notes pinned to ticket comments. Nobody really listens to the quiet ones who never raise their voices. You build a bridge. You walk them across it every day. They fire you and wonder why the river eats their feet. By 10:01 a.m., someone somewhere tried to force a rollback on the new automation stack. It didn't work, because those scripts didn't fail. They waited, and kept waiting. I leaned back in my chair, sun on my face, and took a slow sip of coffee like it was $1,000 scotch. They hadn't seen the worst yet, but they were getting close. By 10:43 a.m., official smell of panic had settled into the office like burned popcorn, bitter, acrid, clinging to the back of everyone's throat. The kind of atmosphere where even the standing desks feel accusatory, where every chair squeak sounds like a cry for help. The IT team did what any cornered animal does. They tore open the automation repo like it was a life raft. And that's when it got real dark, real fast. The repo was a graveyard, scattering of commits that looked like someone had dumped puzzle pieces from 6 different boxes and hoped they'd fit. Some scripts were 2 months old. Others dated back to when our logo still had Comic Sans in the footer. Comments? Sparse. Explanations? Good luck. They found automation MainPy, but only half of it. The dependencies called for modules not in the repo, with vague names like Verify Keychain, Signal Sync, and Echo Downstream. Ones that mattered were either obfuscated beyond readability or flat out missing. Someone tried running a reverse grep to trace the cron job links. Nothing. They posted in the internal DevOps chat, anyone got the full version of Signal Sync. Can't find it in the latest push. Check the QA branch, some of her tools lived there. Nope. Just stub scripts and a call to a URL that's dead. And then, like divine intervention from the lowest rung on the totem pole, Brandon, the junior engineer who used to microwave tuna at 11 a.m., piped up with a memory. I think she once said something like, "The last step authenticates offsite." The room froze. Brandon said he regretted opening his mouth the second it left his lips. Someone sprinted over to legal. Another person started shouting about data sovereignty. Meanwhile, someone in compliance tried calling the VP but got sent to voicemail. 3 times. Finally looked past the code and into the heartbeat, and found nothing. No keys, no tokens, no map, just shadows of a structure too complex for buzzwords and diagrams. They hadn't just lost the code, they'd lost the narrative. And back in my kitchen, I was eating cereal like a war god in retirement. My laptop buzzed. New email. From HR department at subject. Temporary contract opportunity. Hi name. We hope you're doing well. Light of recent workflow challenges, we'd like to extend an invitation to return in a limited consulting capacity to assist with key transition areas. Compensation is negotiable. Please let us know if you're available to discuss. Sincerely, the HR team. I stared at the screen, spoon halfway to my mouth. They really thought I'd come back, that after being escorted out like a disgraced barista, I'd waltz back in with a whiteboard marker and a smile. I closed the email, left it unread. No reply, not even a middle finger in Morse code. Still, I didn't delete it. Because here's the thing no one likes to admit. Guilt doesn't care if you're right. For a second, just a breath of a second, I felt the old weight in my chest. The part of me that remembered birthdays, who brought in cake for interns, who patched someone's dock or container at midnight because they had food poisoning. The part that still saw faces, not roles. Then I remembered the VP's voice, smug and sterile. Your own automations made you unnecessary. And just like that, the guilt folded in on itself, turned into something sharp, something useful. I opened the logs on my private server, watched them blink idle, no access attempts, no keys requested, nothing. They still didn't understand what they were looking for. They thought it was a code problem. It wasn't. It was an architecture problem. And I was the architecture. The company's first official statement dropped at 11:17 a.m. A tight-lipped tweet from the main account, all lowercase reassurance and meaningless optimism. We're currently addressing a minor service disruption affecting some users. Our team is on it. Stay tuned, minor. By then, half the backend was eating itself alive like a snake that mistook its own tail for dinner. The VP, shiny-suited, soundbite trained, full of that startup messiah energy, scrambled together an emergency Zoom with department heads and select clients. They weren't calling it a crisis yet, but the smell of it was in the air, thick like mildew in an abandoned crawlspace. Someone recorded the call and leaked it to Slack, and because the gods of petty justice are real, I had a front row seat via a Dropbox link from a former coworker who titled the file, Clown Meltdown Our Mauve. The VP looked like a hostage. Gone was the confident posture, rehearsed smile. He was sweating through his collar, blinking too fast. Behind him, the wall of motivational posters, work smarter not harder, hustle with heart, do more with less, looked like satire now. Our current disruption stems from legacy inefficiencies, he said, avoiding eye contact with the camera like the guilt was tangible. Legacy inefficiencies. Say it louder for the people in the cheap seats. He danced around the fact that nobody could generate reports, or that client billing had stalled, or that the cron system they all took for granted was now a pile of twitching spaghetti with no meatball. One client, off mute, interrupted. Didn't you just say you increased efficiency by offboarding the lead engineer behind all this? The VP fumbled. We're in the process of recalibrating the new architecture. It's already being resolved. Spoiler, it wasn't. Internally, he slammed the digital table. Barked at the IT lead. Build it, strip the stack. I want her footprint gone. We don't need old code ghosts haunting us. Just start fresh. Oh, honey, they tried. God help them, they tried. Someone spun up a new repo titled Auto Stack Recovery. Another poor soul started mapping out a dev timeline on Trello. They brought in a contractor from some LinkedIn connection named Lucas, who claimed he specialized in legacy cleanups. Lucas stared at the obfuscated logic for 2 hours and quietly backed out of the Slack channel and never came back. Meanwhile, systems continued choking. The billing queue began duplicating transactions. Some clients got double charged, others got locked out. The scheduling tools reverted to 2021 time zones, and one particularly broken script started auto-emailing null invoices to executive contacts. VP reappeared that afternoon on a PR livestream hosted by some no-name business podcast. His voice cracked while explaining how modern companies need to be agile, not reliant on any one person. His neck glistened. His hands fidgeted. I watched it all on my second monitor, editing a recipe blog in another tab like I wasn't witnessing the digital collapse of an empire I'd built with my bare hands. Then, at 3:12 p.m., something hit my inbox, not from my old company, not another HR grovel disguised as a re-engagement opportunity. This was different. GitHub. A message from a user I didn't recognize, handle, @rootcraftdev. Hey there, saw your repo on asynchronous verification loops. Brilliant stuff. We implemented your key swap logic last quarter and saw a 37% speedup in batch reconciliation. Changed our whole system. Quick Q, are you open to freelance or consulting? Or full-time? We'd love to chat. Aaliyah, lead engineer, Hatchpoint Systems, Hatchpoint. Small firm, scrappy. Mostly under the radar, but I'd seen their name floated in engineering circles. Fast adopters, zero BS, big respect for clean architecture. They were everything my old company pretended to be before it drowned in meetings and buzzwords. I reread the message twice. Not we're in trouble, help us. Can you fix what you broke? Just admiration, curiosity, respect. I felt it in my chest like a soft click, not a roar, not vindication screaming from the rooftops. Just a quiet, well-oiled hinge swinging open. And on my monitor, the VP stammered through another excuse. We are absolutely committed to transparency moving forward, and the disruption is already being resolved. Sure, boss. Resolved by people who weren't even in your building anymore. Cafe was small, tucked between a laundromat that smelled like stale detergent and a bookstore that hadn't updated its front window since Bush was president. No Wi-Fi, no QR code menus, just ceramic mugs and the soft hiss of a steam wand that sounded like it hated capitalism as much as I did. I got there early. Habit. Sat near the window with my back to the wall. Years of being the ghost in every system trained you to observe first, move later. Leah arrived 5 minutes late, but with the kind of energy that didn't feel late. Hoodie, blazer, scuffed sneakers that told me they'd built something before. Not someone who used phrases like low-hanging fruit or quick wins. Their handshake was firm but unassuming. They didn't bring a laptop, just a notepad and a pen. "I'm not here to make you pitch yourself," they said, sliding into the chair across from me. "You already did that years ago, apparently. Just didn't know your name?" I blinked. They grinned. "Your GitHub commits, especially the asynchronous token gate with rotating signature keys, that saved our team from 6 months of integration hell. We forked it, cleaned it up, and it's been our backbone ever since." My throat caught. I took a slow sip of bitter coffee just to stall. They reached into a canvas folder and pulled out a single page. Not a contract, not a slide deck, just a printed offer. All consulting lead engineer base rate, 2x your previous comp creative autonomy, 100% oversight, none from non-technical managers, start date, whenever you want optional, relocation bonus, equipment stipend, therapy voucher. I stared at it like it might dissolve if I blinked wrong. "You're serious," I said, as a root directory. The chuckle escaped me before I could strangle it. I looked at the offer again. My name spelled correctly. No buzzwords, just clean terms and a blank canvas. "I have one condition," I said. Alir raised an eyebrow. "No managers who use the phrase macro monkey. Ever," they snorted. "If someone says that in our office, they're on cold brew duty for a month." I didn't shake on it. I just nodded. It was the most yes I'd felt in years. We didn't linger. No contract signing ceremony. No champagne flute. Just two people who understood what good systems feel like when they hum. The time I got home, the light was shifting through the windows like soft gold. My cat blinked at me from the staircase like she'd seen this version of me before, but had given up waiting for it. I went downstairs. The server rack sat in the corner of the basement like an old war veteran, dusty, quiet, still alive, but not needed anymore. I opened the metal door, ran a cloth over the top vents, and stared into its blinking heart. This machine had been my secret lighthouse, my failsafe, my soft middle finger in blinking green LEDs. It had hummed me through layoffs, divorces, Sunday nights, and 3 a.m. urgent tickets from people who never said thank you. I powered it down. Fan by fan, the hum fell away until only silence remained. It didn't feel like revenge. It didn't even feel like closure. It felt like evolution, like finally stepping out of the ghost's skin they'd shoved me into and remembering I had bones. I coiled the power cords, tucked the drives into static bags, packed it all carefully like something sacred, because it was, not because of what it did to them, but because of what it reminded me I could build. And this time, I'd build it where they couldn't touch it. By Wednesday morning, the reckoning had gone viral in the most boring, bureaucratic way possible. Accounting errors. Someone at a logistics company tweeted a screenshot of a red banner alert from the client portal. Report unavailable. Try again later. The tweet was simple. "Y'all good over there at Flow Sync? Or did your entire backend go on vacation?" Under it, dozens of replies. "Same here. Payroll's delayed 2 days now. My invoice just disappeared, lol WTF. Then someone posted a photo of a literal spreadsheet printout, coffee stain in the corner, highlighter streaks on a pie chart, and captioned it, "Manual fallback week 3 at Flow Sync. Thought we left this in 2007. The hashtags started crawling in. #workflow fail, #digital regression, #bring back the engineer at first. I thought it'd stay small. A ripple. A few IT folks venting over morning coffee. But by noon, a minor tech blog picked it up, Wired Zone, the kind of site that lives for schadenfreude and startup stumbles. Headline slapped. Startup that fired its automation lead now runs on manual spreadsheets. Flow Sync's unexplained downtime reveals flawed offboarding and overconfidence in VP-led efficiency overhaul, they quoted anonymous sources. One said, the system was fine until someone decided the person holding it together was too expensive. Another said, We literally have no idea how the back end works anymore. The cherry on top, a quiet, sleek post from Hatchpoint. Team, no fireworks, no gloating. Just a sharp, well-written case study posted to their blog, how modular verification scripts cut our error rates by 37% in Q1, featuring the work of our newest consulting lead engineer. No name mentioned, no shots fired, just the truth dressed in clean UI and technical respect. I read it 3 times, and for once, I didn't feel the need to add anything. My inbox, though, had other plans. LinkedIn lit up like a Christmas tree in hell. Hey, was reading about Flow Sync, that your architecture there unraveling. Did you really build all that yourself? Like the whole stack? You left just in time, huh? Lol, we miss you. Kind of. Any chance you'd be open to consulting? I know someone who needs a ghost like you. The tone ranged from awestruck to awkwardly apologetic. Coworkers who hadn't said a word the day I left were suddenly rediscovering how keyboards worked. One message came from someone who used to roll their eyes when I explained error logging hierarchies during stand-ups. I didn't realize you were the one keeping the wheels turning. Respect. Seriously. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Not even out of pride. But because I didn't owe anyone a damn explanation for being right all along. They saw me as invisible until I was gone. Now they saw the holes I left, felt the draft where I used to stand. And that was enough. I watched the internet swirl, the headlines cycle, the same VP trot out more PR fluff about next-gen upgrades and embracing the learning curve. He still hadn't admitted the real problem. He couldn't, because admitting it meant saying out loud that the quiet woman they ghosted out the side door had been the only thing between them and total collapse. Instead, he leaned on jargon like it was Kevlar. Ongoing infrastructure recalibration, dynamic realignment, temporary regression in output forecasting. I closed the browser. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood. My cat stretched across the radiator, living her best life. And I stayed silent. Because when you build something that truly works, really works, you don't need to scream to be heard. The absence is loud enough. The email hit my inbox at 6:13 a.m., time-stamped like they wanted to prove they'd been working through the night, like urgency was a substitute for integrity. Subject line, urgent. Formal request for access authentication infrastructure recovery. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit there, bolded and unread, while I made coffee. Slow drip, extra strong. Let the weight of what was coming simmer like a pot about to boil over. I finally clicked it open with one hand, still stirring sugar into my mug. Dear name, we hope this message finds you well. Following ongoing infrastructure challenges, we are formally requesting your cooperation in restoring system continuity at Flow Sync, specifically regarding the offsite authentication process that was previously linked to your home-based server during your time with the company. We understand that your transition was abrupt, and documentation may not have been completed to fully hand off all active processes. To that end, we respectfully request temporary access credentials or procedural insights that would allow our recovery team to reestablish normal operations. We trust this matter can be resolved professionally and with mutual respect. Sincerely, Martin D. Leary Corporate Counsel Flow Sync Legal. I didn't laugh. That would have felt too generous. Instead, I stared at the phrasing, your cooperation, respectfully request mutual respect. As if respect had ever entered the room when they gutted my role and marched me out like a liability. As if they hadn't spent the last week pretending I never existed while scrambling to duct tape my work back together like a knocked-over Jenga tower. They wanted access. To the system I'd built on nights and weekends. To the machine I housed, maintained, protected. To the one part of the infrastructure they couldn't buy back. I placed my mug down, opened the reply window, typed slowly, deliberately. There was no NDA, no contract, and no respect. No greeting, no closing, no hope you're well, just truth, served cold. I hit send, then hovered for a moment, just long enough to consider whether they deserved even that much, and hit delete. The message, the thread, the account folder. Gone, flushed from my inbox like the last trace of a life I didn't belong to anymore. I stood up and exhaled, not a dramatic sigh, not some movie scene monologue, just breathe, clean, final. My hands didn't shake. That was the part that surprised me, not the rage hell that had been there since the day they used my code as a stepping stone to throw me off the ledge. But the stillness that followed, that was new, that was mine. Upstairs, my laptop chimed. Hatchpoint had just finalized onboarding 3 new engineers under my umbrella. Systems scaling, new sectors, expansion proposals already queued in the internal wiki. I reviewed their names: young, bright, hungry. I'd be leading them, not managing. Guiding, riding, architecting. We were going to rebuild better. Not from revenge, from freedom. No legacy bloat, no politics, no VP-shaped shadows breathing down our sprint boards. Just code. Clean, elegant mine. In the corner of my office sat the boxed-up server, powered down, dignified. And in some other city, some fluorescent-lit panic room full of people in dress shirts and bad decisions, were probably a dozen hands waving over keyboards trying to resuscitate something they never truly understood. Let them wave. Let them scramble. My system had done exactly what it was designed to do: survive without me until they couldn't. The server was still warm when I opened the casing. Old aluminum, hand-labeled ports, power strip, zip-tied with the kind of precision you only get from years of ritual. Dust lined the corners like quiet history. I sat on the concrete floor of my basement, legs crossed like I was back in college, staring into the pulsing glow of the last heartbeat they never deserved. One LED blinked its slow pattern: green, green, pause, green. The logs were clean. Last activity, 04:59 a.m. Authentication handshake disabled. Confirmation sent nowhere. I rested my hand on the top panel. For years, this machine had been the backbone no one saw. It maintained it through power outages, coffee spills, and 3 different operating systems. It never asked for thanks. It just worked like me. Now it was time. I reached around back, felt the cable with the small white tag, core/key, and pulled. The light dimmed, then vanished. No hiss, no spark, just stillness. A perfect silence that made my ears ring. Upstairs, I poured a fresh mug of coffee, extra strong. My cat hopped into the windowsill and pawed at the condensation. The sky was just beginning to break from purple to gold, streaked with clouds that looked like they'd been drawn by a lazy god. I sat in my chair and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., the final pulse rippled through the old company's brittle arteries. Their systems didn't crash this time. They froze. Not a bang. A breath held too long. Dashboards that never loaded. Forms that opened and refused to submit. Sync requests looping endlessly like a song with no chorus. But there were no screams this time. No tweets. No blog posts, because no one cared anymore. The clients had moved on, quietly, efficiently, as users do when trust erodes and time runs out. Flow Sync had gone from disruptor to footnote in under 2 fiscal quarters. And when your name stops trending, your failure becomes paperwork. I checked my inbox once, only once. There it was, one last whimper from the ashes. From VP Operations at FlowSyncCom subject. Final request, System Insights High. We understand this may not be ideal timing, but we would deeply appreciate any insight you're willing to provide on the original system architecture or recovery path. We're looking to rebuild from scratch and would value your perspective. Sincerely, Terry L., VP of Operations. I didn't open the message. Didn't read past the preview. Just moved it straight to archive, where it could sit quietly, untouched, next to all the other apologies that came too late. The sunlight reached my feet. I sat back, one hand wrapped around the mug, and let the warmth creep up my fingers. No interviews, no statements, no "I told you so." Just the hum of a house finally free of noise, and a smile, small, private. The kind you wear when you've already won, even if no one's watching. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.